Have you ever driven alone at night? The road is empty, silent, with only your headlights cutting through the darkness. At first it feels normal, until you realize something is wrong. A shadow running alongside your car, headlights behind you that suddenly vanish, or a stranger who stops to help you, even though he shouldn't exist anymore. Night drives have always been filled with stories that can't be explained by logic. And tonight, you'll hear 3 terrifying true accounts of night drives gone wrong. 3 disturbing stories that will make you think twice the next time you're alone behind the wheel in the middle of the night. My name is David, and what I'm about to tell you happened about 6 years ago in rural Nebraska. Even after all this time, I still get chills whenever I think about it. It was late on a Friday night. I had stayed overtime at work, and by the time I finally got into my car and started driving home, it was past midnight. My route wasn't through the highway, but through a long, empty county road that cut through miles of cornfields. It was the kind of road where you could drive for half an hour without seeing a single car. No streetlights, no houses, just pitch-black fields stretching endlessly on both sides. The first 30 minutes were uneventful. I was exhausted. The only sound was the hum of my tires on the asphalt, and occasionally the faint crackle of static from my radio. But then, without any warning, my car suddenly jerked. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then died completely. The headlights dimmed as I rolled to the side of the road, stopping in complete darkness. I tried the ignition again and again. Nothing. Dead silence. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, realizing how alone I was. I pulled out my phone, but of course, no signal. Just the mocking words, "No service," glowing on the screen. The night felt heavier by the minute. There wasn't a single sound outside, except for the occasional rustling of the wind through the corn. Every few minutes I'd check my rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights, but the road behind me stayed empty. And then, finally, after what felt like forever, I saw a glow in the distance. Headlights. A vehicle was approaching. Relief flooded me as the light grew brighter. The car slowed down and stopped right behind mine. I stepped out quickly, waving. It wasn't just a car. It was an old, beat-up Chevy pickup, maybe from the late 70s. The blue paint was faded and chipped, the bumper dented. From the driver's side stepped out a tall, thin man. He looked to be in his late 50s, with short, graying hair. He wore an old denim jacket and a calm expression. "Car trouble?" he asked in a low, steady voice. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound composed, though my voice shook a little. "It just died on me. Won't even start again." He nodded slowly, then walked over to my car. Without much hesitation, he popped the hood and leaned over the engine. His movements were efficient, like he'd done this 1,000 times. I shone the flashlight from my phone so he could see better. He didn't talk much, just made a few adjustments, his face mostly unreadable. After about 10 minutes, he shut the hood and looked at me. "Try it now," he said. I got in, turned the key, and the engine roared back to life. I can't explain the relief that washed over me. I practically shouted, "Thank you so much, sir. Really, I don't know what I would have done out here without you." The man gave a faint smile, but his next words, they stuck with me. "Be careful on this road," he said quietly. "Don't stop again tonight. There was something about the way he said it. His voice was calm, but his eyes seemed distant, almost hollow. Still, I nodded, thanked him again, and watched as he walked back to his old pickup. He waved once before driving off into the night, his taillights slowly fading into the distance. The next day, I drove into town to get my car properly checked at a local repair shop. While the mechanic was inspecting the engine, I casually told him about the man with the old pickup who had helped me out the night before. At first, the mechanic barely reacted, but when I described the man's denim jacket, his thin build, and the faded blue Chevy with a dented bumper, the mechanic froze. His expression changed instantly. "Wait, you're saying a guy like that stopped and helped you last night? Out on County Road 16? I nodded, suddenly uneasy. "Yeah, why?" The mechanic didn't answer. Instead, he walked into his office, rummaged around, and came back holding an old laminated newspaper clipping that had been pinned to the wall. He handed it to me silently. The headline read, "Fatal Crash on County Road 16. Local farmer dies instantly." There was a photo underneath. My hands went cold as I stared at it. It was him, the same man, the same jacket, and in the background of the photo was the same blue Chevy pickup, wrecked and mangled. I looked at the date. The accident had happened in 1998, almost 20 years before the night he had helped me. I handed the clipping back with trembling hands. This can't be real. I saw him. He talked to me. He fixed my car." The mechanic just stared at me, his face pale. "You're not the first to say that," he muttered. "People have seen him before. Always on that same road, always at night. Some say he's still out there, looking to help stranded drivers, the way he never got helped himself." That night, when I finally got home, I couldn't shake his words. The way he had looked at me before leaving, his calm but hollow voice whispering, "Don't stop again tonight." I don't know if what I encountered was a ghost, a spirit, or something else entirely. All I know is, the man who helped me had been dead for nearly 2 decades, and whenever I drive down that lonely road again, I can't help but wonder, was he really helping me? Or was he warning me about something much worse still waiting in the dark? My name is Daniel, a delivery driver from Canada. That night, I was on a late-night run, heading toward a small town near the US border. The trip should have been simple. Straight highways, drop off the package, and make it back home before dawn. But everything changed when I decided to follow Google Maps. At first, the GPS suggested an alternate route, claiming it could save me 15 minutes. I was exhausted and eager to finish, so without hesitation, I took the detour. The highway lights faded behind me as the road narrowed into a quiet 2-lane stretch. Streetlights grew scarce, houses disappeared, and eventually, I was surrounded by nothing but dense, towering forest. The dashboard clock read 12:47 a.m. A cold draft seeped through the window. The asphalt turned rougher beneath my wheels, and my phone signal completely vanished. My stomach tightened, but the robotic voice of Google Maps calmly instructed, "Turn right in 200 meters." I slowed down. The road ahead wasn't paved at all. It was a narrow dirt path cutting straight into the forest. Tall trees arched overhead, their branches clawing at the night sky. I hesitated, but with no other options and no sign of civilization, I turned. The moment my tires crunched onto the dirt, Regret sank into my chest. The path was claustrophobic, barely wide enough for one car. A thin veil of fog drifted between the trees, and my headlights could only pierce a few feet ahead. The forest felt alive. Every so often, I'd hear something. The sharp crack of branches snapping. A fleeting shadow darting across the road. And faint whispers, almost too quiet to be real, brushing against my windows. I told myself it was just wildlife. But deep down, I knew better. The deeper I drove, the stronger the sense grew that something out there was watching me. Then, without warning, the GPS froze. The map glitched, the voice went silent, and then, black screen. Dead. My phone powered off completely, no matter how many times I pressed the button. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The car's headlights were the only thing keeping the darkness at bay. And then, in my rearview mirror, I saw it. 2 faint glowing lights. At first, I thought they were headlights. Another car finally catching up behind me. But as I stared, my stomach twisted. They were too small, too far apart, too high off the ground, and they were moving closer, not headlights. Eyes. I slammed my foot on the gas. The car lurched forward, bouncing violently over potholes and rocks. Trees blurred on either side, but the glowing eyes in my mirror only grew closer. Then, something darted across the road. I screamed and hit the brakes. Tires screeched, the car fishtailed, and I barely avoided crashing into a tree. And that's when I saw it. Illuminated in my headlights stood a figure, tall, impossibly thin, its skin pale like ash. Its arms were grotesquely long, fingertips nearly scraping the ground. And its face. There was no mouth. Just 2 enormous, unblinking black eyes that locked directly onto me. I froze. My whole body went cold. The creature tilted its head, almost curious, as if trying to peer into the car. Panic took over. I slammed the accelerator, the engine roared, and the car barreled forward. Branches whipped against the sides, the suspension groaned, but I didn't care. I just needed to get out. But no matter how far I drove, the road never seemed to end. The forest was endless, a looping nightmare with no escape. Tuck, tuck, tuck. My head snapped to the side window. Knocking. 3 slow taps against the glass. I whipped my head around. Nothing. But when I turned back toward the road, my heart dropped. The creature was standing there again, in the middle of the path, waiting. I jerked the wheel, swerving hard, barely missing it. My chest tightened, breaths coming in ragged gasps. Tears stung my eyes as I whispered prayers under my breath. Then, suddenly, the forest broke. Blinding light hit my eyes. I was back on the main highway. Streetlights glowed overhead, the asphalt smooth again, and far ahead I could see the glowing sign of the town I was headed for. I slowed down, trembling, trying to understand. My GPS was still dead, my phone completely black. But as I glanced into the rearview mirror one last time, my stomach turned to ice. Through the fog at the forest's edge, I saw it. That same tall, pale figure, standing perfectly still, watching me, its massive black eyes glowing faintly in the dark as I drove away. That night, I swore to myself I'd never again follow some random shortcut through the woods. Because now I know, there are roads no human should take, roads that don't lead anywhere except terror, and something waiting in the dark. My name is Angel. I'm 40 years old, and I live in a small town in Pennsylvania. That night, I was driving home late from work. The road stretched endlessly ahead, empty and silent. with nothing but the hum of my engine to keep me company. The clock on the dashboard glowed. 11:38 p.m. I'd driven this late before, but something about that night felt different. The air was colder than usual, almost biting. A thin veil of fog clung to the pavement, and every time I checked the rearview mirror, it felt like something should have been there. Yet all I saw was darkness. Several miles later, my car suddenly sputtered. The engine coughed, the lights flickered, and then silence. I cursed under my breath, guiding the car to the shoulder of the deserted road. There were no houses, no gas stations, not even another car in sight. Just me, the night, and an unsettling silence. With a sigh, I grabbed my phone and a small flashlight, stepping out into the cold. I popped the hood, expecting maybe a loose cable or an overheated radiator. But the moment I lifted it, a foul stench hit me so hard I nearly gagged. It wasn't oil. It wasn't burnt rubber. It was blood. The coppery, iron-rich smell of fresh blood. I froze, blinking in disbelief. Shining my phone's flashlight down into the engine, my stomach lurched. Thick, dark red liquid coated the wires and metal, dripping slowly onto the asphalt below. It wasn't oil. It wasn't coolant. There was no mistaking it. It was blood. My hands shook. I slammed the hood shut, backing away, bile rising in my throat. None of this made sense. And before I could even process it, I heard something. Soft, deliberate footsteps behind me. "Hello!" I called out, my voice trembling. The footsteps stopped. Slowly, I turned. The road behind me was empty. No one was there. But as I lowered my gaze, my heart skipped. Fresh, wet footprints, bare feet, smeared with blood, trailed across the asphalt and disappeared into the tree line beside the road. I bolted back into the car, slamming the door and locking it. My hands fumbled with the keys, trying to start the engine. Nothing. Dead. The dashboard was lifeless. My phone screen flickered and then went black, even though I knew the battery was nearly full. It was like everything around me had simply died. And then, the smell. That metallic stench of blood grew stronger, seeping into the cabin. My skin crawled. Slowly, with dread clawing up my spine, I turned toward the passenger seat. And I saw her. An old woman sat there, drenched in blood. Her hair was long and tangled, her dress tattered and soaked crimson. Her skin was ghostly pale, her eyes wide and unblinking, staring straight ahead, as if she'd been sitting there the entire time. I screamed, fumbling for the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. Every lock had sealed tight. I turned back. She was facing me now. Her empty, soulless eyes bore into mine. Slowly, her mouth began to open, but no words came out. Instead, a thick stream of dark blood spilled from her lips, dripping down her chin, staining the seat below. I sobbed, my hands trembling violently as I twisted the key one more time. The engine roared to life with a violent jolt. I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires screeched as I tore down the empty road, not daring to look at the figure beside me. For several agonizing minutes, I drove blindly, heart hammering, tears blurring my vision. And then, the smell began to fade. The air felt lighter. Finally, I glanced at the passenger seat. Empty. The old woman was gone, but the seat was still damp, soaked in something dark. When the bright glow of city lights finally appeared on the horizon, I nearly collapsed with relief. I had made it out. The car purred beneath me as though it had never broken down at all. But even now, weeks later, something still lingers. Every time I drive at night, I catch it. That faint metallic stench drifting from the vents. And sometimes, in the rearview mirror, I see her again. The same old woman, sitting silently in the back seat, watching me. And that concludes tonight's story. 3 disturbing night drive horror tales that might just haunt your next late-night trip. But now it's your turn. Have you ever experienced something strange while driving at night? Maybe a figure in your rearview mirror, a voice whispering from the back seat, or that chilling feeling that you weren't alone. Share your experience in the comments below. Who knows, your story might be featured in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the Bone Library, where the darkest and most terrifying stories will keep you company through the night. Until next time, if you dare to keep listening.